Welcome! Thank you for joining us for today's lesson. This is part of a 13-lesson series brought to you by the Food Trust Nutrition Educators. The Food Trust works to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, nutritious food and the information to make healthy choices. In this series, we'll be covering topics such as how to shop at a farmer's market, stretching your food dollars, storing fruits and vegetables, and more. Join us every other week as we share nutrition information from MyPlate, as well as tips and tricks to eating more healthy food at every meal. Each bi-weekly lesson will be followed by a recipe featuring a seasonal ingredient you can find at your local farmer's market or grocery store. Meet our nutrition educators, who you'll get to know through our lessons or recipe demonstrations. We're excited to have you with us. Thanks again for joining us. Please fill out our anonymous survey at the end of this video so that we can find out more about who we're reaching and how to serve our audience best. We hope you come back for our next lesson. See you then!
Hello, my name is Charlize, and I'm a nutrition educator here with the Food Trust. A little bit about us: we work hard to make sure people have access to delicious, nutritious food no matter where they live. We also provide nutrition education by using MyPlate, which is the basis for every lesson that we teach. So here's just a little overview of the things you want to make sure that you know going forward as you watch our different lessons. For one, you'll notice that half of the plate contains fruits and vegetables. You want to keep this in mind for every single meal. Now, while it can be difficult to think for fruits for dinner and vegetables for breakfast, there are a lot of creative ways in which you can combine both of those to make something delicious as well as nutritious. As you watch our lessons, we'll give you some more ideas onto how to make that happen. Along with that, we're looking for 6 ounces of greens every single day. So that can be half of it whole grains and half of it are refined grains. Whole grains, for instance, are oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat bread. Those are great sources of a nice whole grain. Now, of course, we'll explain a little bit more as to why that's good for us, but you want to keep in mind, first things first, is that it's really great for our hearts. So when you are choosing your grains, you want to make half of your grains whole, meaning that 3 ounces of the day, you want to try to make sure you're getting a whole grain, and you'll find balance between the ones that you like and the refined grains that you prefer. Along with that, we're looking for 6 ounces of protein daily. With 6 ounces of protein, we want to make sure that we want to mix up how we get our protein. There are 2 types: animal-based protein and plant-based protein. With animal-based protein, it provides a great source of iron, which is super awesome for our bodies, but it doesn't provide any fiber. Versus plant-based protein, where the iron is a little bit harder to digest, but it provides us with fiber. That's when you want to make sure you're getting a nice balance of both. When you're choosing the size of meat, you want it to be the size of your palm of your hand. When you're choosing your plant-based protein, you want to at least get like a cup of beans, maybe even a 4th cup of nuts and seeds. Just make sure you're reading the labels and see what serving size is going to work for your protein goals. Last thing we have is dairy. With dairy, we want to make sure we're getting 3 cups of it daily. This is a great source of calcium. But if you don't eat dairy products for whatever reason, there are other options as well. There's non-dairy milk, there's kale, and other dark leafy green vegetables that count as a vegetable on my plate, but also counts as our calcium source as well. So you can kind of Get 2 different food groups covered with 1 vegetable. Along with that, there's even fortified orange juice as well as fortified bread that'll have calcium in it. So if you choose to eat dairy products, milk, cheese, and yogurt. If you choose to eat non-dairy milk, dark leafy green vegetables, and fortified products. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's lesson. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
Hi, I'm Lauren, a SNAP-Ed nutrition educator with the Food Trust. In today's lesson, we're going to talk all about how to save money while shopping for groceries. At the end of this lesson, I'll be making a delicious recipe using fresh seasonal produce that you can find at your local farmer's market. Have you ever been to a farmer's market? You can find a list of our markets at the link below on the Food Trust website. So before we get started on today's lesson, let's review what we talked about last week. Last week, we learned all about MyPlate. First things first, we want to make sure we're getting 2 cups of fruits and 3 cups of vegetables every day. Whether it's fresh, frozen, canned, or dried, all of it helps us reach our nutrition goals. We also learned that half the time we go to eat foods that are made from grains, they are whole grain foods because those whole grains are so good for our hearts. So those foods can be oatmeal, brown rice, or whole wheat bread. Another great thing we learned is that when we want to eat protein foods, we want to go for good lean proteins. Things like turkey, chicken, fish, seeds, nuts, or beans are all great options. Lastly, we're looking to have 3 cups of dairy every day. And if you're looking to avoid dairy, you could also have an equal amount of calcium-rich foods. That could mean milk, cheese, or yogurt. And if you're looking to avoid dairy, that could also mean dark leafy greens or some calcium fortified foods such as non-dairy milks or certain breads. Now that we know a little bit more about these food groups, we can talk about how to save money when buying them. First things first, think of all the things you already do to save money at the grocery store. Maybe you shop around. Maybe you use coupons, or maybe you use a store card to get extra savings. Luckily, all these things you do at the conventional grocery store, you can also do at the farmer's market to save money. For instance, let's think, what is the first thing you do before you head out the door to go to the grocery store? That's right, you make a list. Yep, you look through your pantry, your refrigerator, your freezer, and you see what you already have and what you can work with. Now that you know you have, all you have to do is plan a meal using those ingredients. Then you just need to write down anything that you might be missing that you can get from the farmer's market, and you're ready to go. Maybe, for example, you already have pasta and pasta sauce. Well, you're almost all the way to a good meal. Maybe you just want to pick up some protein and vegetables from the farmer's market or grocery store. When we make a list and figure out what we already have, we make sure we're not wasting food or money. So once you're already at the farmer's market, what is another thing you can do to save money? That's right, you can shop around. If there are multiple vendors at the farmer's market, you can compare prices and items. So remember, when you're at the farmer's market, before you make any purchases, take a look around and see how you can maximize your budget. So what does it mean to shop in season, and what are the benefits? Well, shopping seasonally or buying food that is grown during this time of year can actually save you money because it's grown in abundance. It can also be more nutritious because this food gives our body exactly what it needs at this time of the year. For example, summer produce are often full of water, which help us stay hydrated during this hot time of year. All of these tips will definitely help you save money when you buy your groceries at the farmer's market. Now that you know a little bit about how to eat healthy on a budget, we're going to make a recipe using low-cost ingredients that you can get at the farmer's market.
Hello, thank you so much for tuning into today's lesson, all about stretching food dollars. We learned a lot of different ways to do that, so let's recap and go over the many things we learned today. For one, we learned that before you go to the market, you want to have a plan. you want to make sure that you have a list. You go through your pantry, you go through your fridge and your freezer, and you just see what you already have, and then when you go to the market, you can add to that and use both to create a meal. Versus if you just go to the market and you forget anything that you have, and you might wind up getting things that you've already had or don't need. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Along with that, before you leave the house, you want to make sure you have a meal, or at the very least a snack. You don't want to go to the market hungry, because then everything looks delicious and you might go over your food budget. When you get to the market, you can use the paper circulars they have, or you can use your phone. There's so many different apps that you can use to compare prices at different markets. I know growing up, my mom would get canned goods at one market and she would get meat at another. That way she can maximize on how much she can get and still stretch her food dollars so we can meet our nutritional goals. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Make sure that you compare prices and get coupons where you can. There's also store cards that you can get at most markets, which are free to sign up for. And then you can use that card every time you go food shopping. If you go to a fresh grocer, for instance, if you use your fresh grocer card and an EBT card, you will get $2 back for fruits and vegetables for every $5 that you spend. You can use those coupons to purchase more fruits and vegetables either that day or even later on. So that's another way that you can stretch your food dollars as well. Now, after you come home from the market, you want to make sure that you have a good amount of staple items, things that aren't going to go bad very quickly, so that you're able to create meals all the time. I know growing up, for instance, my mom would always make sure we had a can of pasta sauce and a box of pasta. That way she could just throw that together with some vegetables and or some meat and cheese and make that more of a complete meal. So what are your staple items that you like to keep in your house so that you always have a meal? Along with having staple items, you want to make more things from scratch if you can, versus buying it in its full form. For instance, macaroni and cheese, it might be cheaper to just buy the pasta, the milk, and the cheese separately. That way you can get a bigger serving versus a box where maybe you only get 3 to 4 servings for your families. Along with when you shop at the market, you have your staple items. You want to compare the prices in terms of the quantity of what you get as well. For instance, maybe it would make more sense for you to buy 24 ounces of cheese versus the 6 ounce of cheese. Yes, the 6 ounce of cheese is cheaper, maybe by a few dollars, but if you plan to use it multiple times, you want to buy it more in bulk, which helps you to save on money overall. So make sure that you're comparing those prices and the quantities as well. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that when you're going out to eat, often restaurants give you a really big portion. So maybe you're not exactly that hungry to finish the whole portion. You can save half of it and use that for another meal. That way you can maximize on that delicious meal and you're able to have it again when you go home. So thank you so much for attending today's lesson. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.